see them as instruments for their own gratification. One offender said, "I have desperately tried to turn them into human beings. I try to see them as children. I try to see them as people, and I'm unable to. I just can't do it. They're simply there for me to live out the fantasies that are in my head."
Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
Depending on the offender, they either feel that we as a society are the distorted ones, that we don't understand how beautiful this can be, that we don't understand that what they were doing wasn't harmful, that we don't understand that a 6-year-old in fact can consent, and others just don't care.
At just 5 years old, Dana Fowley learned that there was no one she could trust. Most devastating of all, even her own mother betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. For years, Dana and her younger sister suffered at the hands of one of Britain's largest ever known pedophile rings, and their mother did nothing to protect these little girls. This story definitely needs a viewer discretion is advised because the abuse is so terrible that it is almost unbelievable. It is so bad that I came close to not telling Dana's story, but I felt if she was brave enough to tell it, then I certainly could be. But I'm not going to lie, I did need to take a break from researching this story and go to it later because it was actually messing with my mental health. And usually, you know, guys, I do really bad cases, but this one really messed with me. And sometimes I just have to take a break when that happens. And so this one was actually planned to do before the last video, but I quit on it and came back later. That's how bad it is. So like I said, viewer discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Holly. Welcome to the Murder She Shed. This is the place you hear rarely discussed true crime right from my little she shed. I'm so glad you came and joined me today for this story that might break your heart. If you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button so you can find me here weekly in this big YouTube world, because a girl can get lost in here, and I often do. And I appreciate it if you help this nerdy girl out. Let's begin. In 1980, Dana Fowley was born to Dad Tim Fowley and Mom Caroline Fowley in Edinburgh, Scotland. 15 months later, her little sister Heather Fowley was then born. Their father, Tam, was a drunk and was very physically abusive. He would beat up on Caroline and the little girls. He even tried to strangle Dana once because he's jealous of the attention that Dana was getting from her mother. When Dana was still little, her father ran off with another woman. Her mother lived off benefits and there was never enough money for food or clothing. So they went a lot of times without basic needs. By the time Dana was 4 years old, her mother met a man 20 years older than her. Caroline met Billy King. Because King was a friend of her father's, maybe because both men were pedophiles is why they were friends, and that formed a friendship between them. See, Caroline's father was a pedophile, and he often would molest Caroline, and later he would even molest Heather and Dana too. You'll find out that this family is full of pedophiles and incest. There was nothing physically attractive about Billy that would have naturally drawn her mother to him. Just maybe it was their warped minds that drew them both together. Billy King soon became the sisters' new stepfather. Billy was a short man who weighed almost 300 pounds, and he smelled so bad, like body odor. He drove an ice cream truck around town selling sweets to children, and apparently he ate from the truck too because he was a large man. When Dana was 5, she was sitting in the living room watching TV when Billy came in with his pants down. He grabbed Dana's head and forced her to perform OS on him. Afterwards, he wiped her mouth with a towel and told her not to tell anyone. At 5, she did not understand what just happened to her. I'm not sure why he told Dana not to tell anyone, because that night he actually told Dana's mother himself. Apparently she didn't mind, because the next day when Dana came home from school, Her mother was home, so she felt safe, and she just knew Billy wouldn't do anything to her. But she was very wrong. Soon as Dana walked in the door, her mother told her to take her pants off and go into the living room. In the living room, Billy was laying on the floor with no pants on. Her own mother placed Dana on top of Billy. When Dana screamed from the pain and tried to get up, her mother would push her back down. Afterwards, her mother Caroline handed her clothes back to her and said, "Now go to your room and play." Even though Dana's mother had never been cuddly or loving mother, Dana at least thought she would protect her from harm. This was the moment that she realized she couldn't even trust her own mother. But Caroline did not try to help her children. She didn't seem to care, maybe because she was brought up in that kind of environment too, where her father molested her, that it seemed like that's what was supposed to happen. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine as a grown woman you would think that, even if you, especially if you've been molested yourself, because you would see how harmful it was. That just always blows my mind. For the rest of their marriage, Billy took advantage of Dana. Whether her mom was home or not, it didn't matter. It wasn't long before her own mother became involved with the abuse too. Usually Dana was pulled into their bed 3 or 4 times weekly. Together, this evil couple would create an open house for fellow pedophiles who would wait patiently in the living room of their home in North Edinburgh to abuse these little girls. Billy King's friends soon would become regular visitors, whether sipping tea in the living room or joining them for family celebrations. But the presents had little to do with spreading joy. They just waited there for the opportunity to force themselves on these little sisters. Over 12 years, the sisters were repeatedly raped by different adults and forced to watch as they indulged in group sex. This paled in comparison to what occurred in the House of Horrors. The House of Horrors belonged to Billy's mom and dad, an old couple. It was a 3-bedroom home with a black iron fence, which hemmed in a tiny front garden. Billy took Dana to the House of Horrors for the first time when she was only 6 years old. Every time Dana or her sister Heather were taken to Grandpa and Nana King's house, they were given a drink that they were then made to drink. Later, Dana thought that perhaps the grandparents had put something in the drink to make the girls drowsy. After Dana arrived at the house, she was given this cup, told to drink it, and then everyone went upstairs, even Billy. After going upstairs in Grandpa and Nana King's bedroom, where it smelled like mothballs and old, sweaty people, she was forced to get naked. Then Billy, along with his parents, got naked, and everyone had sex with everyone. This house was filled with incest. Her whole family, from her stepfather's side to her mother's side, was filled with pedophiles and incest. It's just horrific what these girls had to deal with. After these encounters, Dana and Heather would be told not to tell anyone. Everyone would just go put back on their clothes, go downstairs, sit in the living room to talk, and act like nothing happened, like they were a big, happy family. Dana's mother was not there for the first encounter, but she sometimes would be there in the future visits to the House of Horrors, and she would join in with Billy and Billy's parents too. There were no sexual boundaries between the participants in that house. Part of the reason the abuse was so much worse at Grandpa and Nana King's house was because Grandpa was sadistically violent. Dana would either be beat during the encounters or be choked and pass out. Her little sister Heather even suffered brain damage from the abuse that occurred at that house. Their step-grandparents would also tie the girls up with a belt. They would tie both girls up and leave them tied all day, and then untie the one they were abusing and let the other one watch, and then untie the other one and then tie that one up and let them watch. The grandpa even got off on urinating on these little girls. Sick, sick man. Billy and Caroline, who didn't physically abuse the children at home, would always join in with the physical abuse when the grandparents initiated it. On one occasion, a poker was thrust up Dana's backside by her grandpa. She described it as the most pain she had ever encountered. She begged the old man to stop, and he replied, You want us to do this. After the tortures, her grandpa would always blame them on her, saying, it's your fault because you have been a dirty girl and you wanted it. Billy worked with a man named Scooby, who he actually ended up selling his ice cream truck to. And Billy told Scooby that he could rape Dana too. He'd just pass her around. Scooby's real name was John O'Flattery, and he was already a violent sex predator. So one day when Dana was walking home from school, Scooby stopped his truck and just raped Dana outside in public where anyone could have seen. This was the beginning of Scooby coming over to Billy and Caroline's house all the time and joining in on the abuse. For the next couple of years, Dana had to endure the repeated rapes from Scooby too. One night, Billy came into Dana's bedroom when she was 9 years old. He blindfolded her and then drove her out to a beach in the area. And there he had invited a lot of men. And these men all gang raped this little girl when she was 9 years old on this beach. Years later, it was said that these men that had gang raped her would taunt her by putting the picture of this beach on social media for her to see. This group of men who gang raped her would later be put in prison as part of this large pedo ring who molested many little girls. When Dana was 12, her grandpa King passed away and her Nana King was diagnosed with dementia. Dana was so happy because her time at the House of Horrors was finally ending. At least she would never have to endure the sadistic side of her grandpa again. When she was 12, her parents met a new man, Dana called Mo, after Scooby had moved away. His real name was Morris Mo Petch, of course another pedophile. Dana was often forced to go to Mo's house. His house was nasty and he was stinky, but she knew what was expected of her, so she would just let him rape her. Mo would also have group sex with Billy and her mother Caroline, and so Dana was forced to join in. He particularly liked Dana doing things to her mother. Eventually, Billy King Jr., who was the son of her stepfather, began abusing Dana too. He was 29 years old and she was 12 years old. He was different than other men who abused her as he was a groomer. He would buy her stuff and pay her compliments, and because she was used to such evil men, to her, Billy King Jr. was not a predator. Even though legally it was still right, she willingly had sex with him. While other girls were starting to just be interested in boys and have crushes, 12-year-old Dana had already been raped by so many men, countless men. She didn't even know what love was, so to her, this new man was not a pedo, but someone she had a crush on. When Dana was 15, her evil stepdad Billy passed away in his sleep. Although she pretended to be sad, it was actually the happiest day of her life. After Dana got older, she finally met a man named Paul who taught her what true love was all about. Paul had 2 young boys when they met, but they fell in love with Dana and called her mom after the couple got married. Dana's body was so damaged from all the abuse that she had 3 miscarriages before giving birth to a healthy little boy. Then a few years later, she had another little boy. And she had one more child who was a little girl. After Dana had her children, she felt the urge to go to the police and tell them about this ring of pedophiles who had abused her and her sister. It made her think, I don't want this to happen to my children. I've got to tell. They don't need to do this to anybody else. At first, though, she didn't tell them about her mother, Caroline being one of her abusers. Through all the abuse, she still had contact with her mother, and she loved her mother. It was a tough decision, but she knew the right thing to do for future children would be to turn her mother into the police. In 2007, a trial was set for her mother, Scooby and Mo. It was revealed that up to 15 people were involved in this pedo ring. Of course, some of them, like Billy King and his mom and dad, were already deceased. Dana was strong enough to testify against her abusers during trial. In court, Dana's mother blamed her dead husband, Billy King, for being the ringleader of this, claiming she was too petrified to refuse his sordid demands. Dana denied that was true, telling the court her mother was equally to blame for the abuse despite her denials. Sadly, in October 2024, Dana, who was only 44 years old, died after complications with type 2 diabetes and gastroparesis. This amazing brave woman was a furious activist against abuse who wrote 2 successful books about what she had endured. Dana's husband, Paul, said Dana faced everything straight on and was the bravest person he ever seen. She stayed that way until her last breath, he said. She did so much in her lifetime to help people. It meant everything to her to bring those people down and ensure monsters down, and sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. John O'Flaherty, or Scooby, who admitted raping Dana on at least 12 occasions, was jailed for 13 years. Dana's mother, Caroline, was sentenced to 12 years in prison for her part in the abuse of the little girls. Caroline's father actually got prison time too for abusing his grandchildren. Morris Petch, or Mo, was given life in prison with the tariff of 12 years. Dana's sister Heather died 2 years before that Dana did and was only 39 years old. Before Heather died, Heather and Dana's biological father, Tam, came back into their lives. But he took advantage of Heather's disability and began sexually abusing her too. It was unbelievable to me that this man who had not been around this, but it just makes sense that her mom would have been with another pedophile too. Her mom had a history of dating one pedophile after another. Because, well, her mom was a pedophile too. Billy King Jr. was not convicted of crimes against Dana until 2020. And that was only because he was caught sexually abusing other children. He was found guilty of various sexual assaults against 2 young females and 1 young male. One little girl that he assaulted had been just 7 years old. The male victim was just 12 when Billy King Jr. had told him to keep the rape a secret or he would kill him. Billy King Jr. was only sentenced to 6 years in prison. To this day, all the people involved in the ring has not been brought to justice. Some of them are still running around out there. There's a difference between surviving and living. Plenty of people survive trauma. They exist in some broken forms of themselves. But the real triumph is when your traumatic past informs who you are but doesn't define you. Dana Fowley didn't let it define her. She was an amazing woman that tried to live a normal life, got married, took great care of her stepchildren and her children, and unfortunately passed away as a very young woman. May you rest in peace, Dana. Come tell him bye, Samo. Tell him bye, Samo. Say we'll see you next time at the Murder She Shed. Well, we will see him next time. And we hope y'all have a blessed week. We're going to try. I got to tell y'all something if you'll let me. I'm going to start watching my little granddaughter full time. So I'm going to do the best I can to get videos out. But if anybody has a little small baby, they understand how hard things are to accomplish. Since I'm retired, I decided to watch her full time. And that way it's cheaper on my kids and easier on them. And I don't mind watching her, really. So, anyway, tell them bye. I just want to tell you, if y'all see me busier than normal and not putting as many videos out, you know why. All right. Tell Matt, here's Max. Here's Simon. Y'all tell him bye.